Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I, Maheen Kaisar, on behalf of Gender and Women's Studies Department, welcome you all to the first ever National Gender Studies Conference on Gender Studies, Perceptions, Practices, and Possibilities. I hope you have learned a lot, and after attending this event, you will be able to write a research paper yourself. Now I would request Dr. Anila Kamal, our keynote speaker for the session, to address a paper on sexual and reproductive health of youth in Pakistan. She is working as a director of National Institute of Psychology, Center of Excellence, Quaid-e-Azam University.
First, I would like to congratulate Dr. Shahid Siddiqui, Vice Chancellor, Allama Iqbal Open University, Dr. Samina Awan, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, and Ms. Atifa, the in charge of the Department of Gender Studies, for this for the commencement of this beautiful event. And I would also like to thank them for inviting me to deliver my keynote speech. The topic of my keynote speech is sexual and reproductive health of youth in Pakistan. As we all know, that reproductive health, according to World Health Organization, is a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being related to reproductive system, its function, and processes. What are the development significance of reproductive health for our youth? When we talk about childhood and adolescent, we all know that puberty is marked by the first menstruation between the age of 10 to 12 years for female, and development of sperm and the first ejaculation between the age of 13 to 14 years for male. What I would like to stress here is that the lack of timely information leads to inappropriate menstruation experiences and poor menstrual hygiene practices that may have adverse health effects. Children require information and a clear picture of their bodily changes to prevent them from physical problem, guilt, ambiguity, and confusion. Boys worry not about the physiology of sperm production, but about the sexual dreams and sensation which accompany their emission. Many boys experience their first emission with guilt, shame, and fear, and at times they think that it's some kind of a disease. Evidence have also found that the majority of girls show either negative or ambivalent responses to menarche. What is the significance in the adulthood? We all know that in adulthood, sexual and reproductive health includes the issues like information, treatment, and prevention services regarding contraceptives, sexually transmitted illnesses, abortion, pregnancy, and so forth. Better knowledge is linked with better practices and overall quality of life, and the poor knowledge can lead to health complications and poor quality of life. What are the challenges that we face for getting a better reproductive health among our youths? There is a lack of awareness about the basic reproductive physiology, basic physiological rationale of the menstrual processes, basic knowledge about reproductive health and HIV, stereotypes and myths, especially related to food intake and hygiene practices, leads to health-related problems. Nocturnal immersion taken as a sin or an outcome of bad habit, less aware of available contraceptive methods, and the vast majority of youth do not know what time during a woman's monthly cycle she has the greatest likelihood of becoming pregnant. What are the sources of information? Unfortunately, our youth do not get much information from anybody. For the girls, as per the literature, they seek information mostly from the mother, and boys from friends and electronic media, and father play the least role. When we say electronic media, the alarming thing is that the internet is considered as a major source for promoting bad practices in respect to sexuality. Available information from parents and friends are based upon myths and stereotypes, for example, beliefs and practices related to menstruation and nocturnal immersion. Same is propagated to the next generation. What are the consequences? Because of the lack of information, our youth face consequences like the diseases such as RTIs, pelvic inflammatory diseases, UTI, which may result in infertility of the girls, early marriages due to which we have low child rearing age, high maternal mortality, unintended conceptions, unsafe and illegal abortions, and poor attitude toward family planning and contraceptive, and STDs and HIV. Psychological consequences include poor mental health and quality of life, poor body, the dissatisfaction and body image, eating disorder, depression, anxiety, substance use, sexual disorders, and the marital dissatisfaction. Now, NIP did a research on the reproductive health of the youth in Pakistan in collaboration with Oxfam Novib. But it was a huge project, covered a lot of things, but here I'm only presenting some part of it, which is related to the knowledge only. And the rationale behind is that the issue of sexuality is too sensitive to be touched among youth in Pakistan. Youth rarely discuss such issues with their elders or family members. Since such discussion of sexuality is discouraged, little is known of sexual attitude and behavior of young people in Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there exists no formal curriculum in schools, and there is confusion about appropriate age for imparting sexual and reproductive health related knowledge. And there is a fear in our society that imparting knowledge at young children will make them promiscuous. Now, what are the objectives? These are the exploring level of knowledge and practices related to sexual and reproductive health among youth, the difference across gender and age. The sample of the study was 2,404 individuals belong to three age bracket. First is the children, that is from 10 to 12, then adolescent, 13 to 18, and then young adult, 19 to 25 years of age group. And we went to 5 different provinces. Through the purposive sampling, we collected the data, and all the participants are either school or college going. These are the areas or the district covered in this research. The research design was mixed method, qualitative and quantitative, but I'll only focus on some part of the survey technique. The major findings, coming quickly to the major findings, these are related to the knowledge. First is the significance of reproductive health according to the participant. What they think, do they really need this knowledge or not? For adult sample, that is between the 19 to 25, what the societal attitudes you can see in these percentages, there's most of them, both male and female, thinks that discussing this means promoting vulgarity. And the other thing that they said, that is the personal, it's a personal matter with a high frequency. While for adolescents, because they are facing it, they are going through the changes in their body, so for them, not exactly majority, but around 50%, both boys and girls said it's a compulsory for health, because they really need this kind of knowledge. And same is with the childhood, that it's a compulsory. Especially the males, boys are having more percentage as comparison to the females. Now the sources of knowledge. As shown in the literature, our sample responded the same. The girls get all the knowledge from the mothers, while the boys got it from either the father or from the internet. Children, again, for mother is the better source. When you talk about a social support available with respect to problems to SRH, to whom they discuss their problems, adult sample says that they discuss it with their friends, the adult with male, and the adult females again said that they discuss it with their mothers. In adolescent sample, you can see that the highest of them are for the girls, it's with the mother, and for boys, it is with the father. No, sorry, not father, it's with the friends. For children, again, if they have any kind of a problem, girls go to the mother and the boys go to father, but there's not much difference between mother and father percentage. Now, then we asked about the knowledge about, because we wanted to know the prevailing myths regarding reproductive health. With the girls, we asked these information with the girls sample only, and found that out of 100%, only 3% of the adult do not experience menstruation, while for adolescent 11.56 do not experience menstruation, and the children 76 were not experiencing menstruation. So we only ask further question with those who are experiencing these things. When we asked adult about it, they said again the myth which is affecting the reproductive health of our youth is that should not take baths, swim, wash body in these days. Maximum, both male and female said this thing, and the second highest is about it happens to, because it's some kind of a disease. For adolescent, again, they don't know what is the physiology of this thing. They call it that it is due to some kind of an illness. For children, because there were only 24% of the children, among those 24%, very less experience it. So they said they simply describe what is this, that it's simply the special days with filthy blood bleed. Now, how they manage menstruation. When we asked about them, do they bath during the adults said no. Maximum adults said no. Similarly, adolescent and children. What reasons that they give? They said that it's affect periods. Again, the health, non-medical description of this, and our religion forbid. As we all know, the religion has nothing to do with the bathing in this kind. And the children said that it leads to illness. When they first experienced, we asked them, did they know about it? Here, adults said that, yes, I could easily tell others, and we know what is this. Adolescents said that they were aware of it, but children said that they feel very strange even with their mother talking about it. And what was their experience at that time? Adults said that they feel tiredness, apprehension. Adolescent and the children said that they feel dirtiness. Okay, what is their current experiences? Adults say, again, it's a problem, but for them, and they cannot move around freely. For adolescent, I feel pain in back, forehead, back, leg, and stomach, and I am always ready for it, which is good for in this group. But for the children, again, the highest is about the pain. Nocturnal emission. This question was asked with the male sample only. And here, 100% of the adults have these experiences, but among the male, 88.22% male experience this thing, but among the children's sample, this experience is quite low. So what is their knowledge about it? Again, the myth, it's a result of bad habit, according to adults, significant for human health. According to them, it's a physical disease and it's a sexual weakness. While adolescents describe it simply like an illness and the weakness, and children describe it in their literal experience, that what is the color of it. Now, when we ask question about pregnancy and the family planning, adults said this thing is very alarming, especially for our campaign, for the government who is running the campaign against the family planning, that adults said that bathing or washing body parts will help in controlling pregnancy. Adult youth between the age of 25 who are college going, they are educated, but this is what they respond. Adolescent mostly said that they don't know, and same is with the children group. Why family planning is not recommended by participant? The most common myths, again, is that it's a danger of physical disability, both for male and the female, and the danger of infertility. This is what the adolescent said. For the children, they said that it is a gift of God, maximum. Children said, and adult most of the time said that because children is a gift of God, so we should not do the family planning. When I ask about the contraceptive methods, awareness about the contraceptive methods, only 19% of the male know about the condom, and very few, 11% know, which are the highest frequency among the group is female. Now, questions about the AIDS and the STDs. According to adult population, AIDS occurred due to a sin. Another interesting thing that they said, it transferred through mosquito biting, eating with the patients of AIDS, and physical relation. There's also a good number who said the physical relation with the partner. Adolescent says that it's because of by having lunch or shaking hand with the AIDS patients, and children said that they don't know about it. Okay. Now, because these findings are related to a very huge project, which cover a lot of other things, so I am simply trying to summarize it because I've done model testing and inferential statistics on it, that the consequences of pure sexual and reproductive health are poor mental health, poor body image, lack of knowledge about abuse and its nature in children especially, more body dissatisfaction, guilt and shame in adolescent, more eating problems including eating withdrawal and overeating in adolescent, and the poor quality of life in adults. What are the suggestions that I would like to suggest in this forum is that acquiring beneficial knowledge, developing positive attitudes, and establishing healthy practices and behavior at an early age sets the stage for longer-term health. Increased knowledge and awareness through media about the physical, psychological, and social aspect of sexual and reproductive health. This is must to address the prevailing myths and misconceptions. Sexual reproductive health related education in curriculum is must as per the age appropriate. Along with girls and women's, substantial focus should be on the boys and men's SRH, as men's SRH is not considered as important in the Pakistani society. Life skill training and making youth assertive on sexual and reproductive methods and their rights. To conclude, it can be said that our research findings show that youth need help and guidance regarding their concern related to SRH. In fact, most of them consider our interaction with them very cathartic and requested interaction with any significant, knowledgeable adult on discussing such issues must be promoted in our society for their better health and the quality of life. So this is the project, and these are the team members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing informative paper with us. Now I would request Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Shahid Siddiqui, for closing remarks.
Thanks very much for this very insightful concluding keynote speech. Let me start with my thanks to the speakers who took our time from their very busy schedule to present here in this conference. As I said the other day that we have tried to make this university as a hub of research activities, and in less than three years, this was the 22nd National International Conference we have organized here. And we are very proud of the fact that this university is publishing 12 research journals in 12 different disciplines. And this number will go up to 15, inshallah, by the end of this year. And we realize that the difference between developing countries and the developed countries is the difference of knowledge. This economic gap is, in fact, the knowledge gap. And one of the ways of construction of knowledge is through research. Research which is indigenous in spirit, relevant to the socioeconomic needs of this society, but at the same time, competitive as far as international standards are concerned. I expressed my views on the first day of this conference in detail. Today, I would just leave some points with you for your consideration. Those who are really working very hard in this area, which is so close to our heart. The first very important point in this area is that initially, when I shared with you this story, that when I was at LUMS and I was trying to design this course, Language, Gender and Power, I had to go to different NGOs who were working in this area. For me, I think what they lacked was a real academic approach to gender. There is more kind of activist approach, which is also very important. But I think if we want to promote some academic area, it needs the support of academic research. So the first point I'm leaving with you is that there is more need for academic research in this field, and that research should be relevant to our socioeconomic needs and to what is happening in our society, in our individual lives. As we have just heard a paper, and everyone sitting here can relate to what was the thrust of this research. My second point, which I would like to leave with you, is that this area, if you are engaged with research, we need to strengthen our theoretical underpinnings. You have to relate whatever you are doing with some theoretical or theory, what we call a basis. That will not only clarify the picture, what you are trying to see in your own mind, but you will be able to grasp that issue in a much better, in a much holistic way. My third point is that we need to broaden the research approaches and methods we are using here. As far as sociology is concerned, and gender is very close to sociology, there has been a tradition of quantitative research. I think that we should not confine ourselves to just quantitative research. There are certain areas and there are certain themes in gender studies which need to look for an alternative approach in research. And I'm referring to qualitative research. Because our conditioning in this quantitative paradigm is so deep that when we listen to some researcher or presenter, the typical questions come to our mind. For instance, how can you generalize your results? This is a typical question which is ingrained in quantitative research, because if you're doing qualitative research, there is no question of generalization. Each context is a unique context. And qualitative research digs deeper instead of covering the whole span, and it is not concerned with the issue of generalization. Similarly, I came across some students who were apparently doing research in qualitative paradigm, but they were more concerned about the hypothesis, because this is what we have trained. So if you are doing a qualitative research, you don't worry about hypothesis. There is no hypothesis in qualitative research. Because in qualitative research, you have to deal with certain research questions. And as you proceed as a researcher, some more questions are added to your preset questions. So this is my third request, that you need to broaden your horizons as far as research approaches and methods are concerned. The fourth point I would like to leave with you is that we need to look at this area in a more holistic way. And our approach to this area should be interdisciplinary. And I would request the other people who are working in other disciplines like economics or education or literature or linguistics or any other. I think it's very interesting if you try to relate some of the disciplines. You will see that a more holistic and a fuller picture emerges. I can share with you my own experience. My area is linguistics, and I thought that it would be very interesting to look at the language, role of language in the construction of gender. And that was the starting point of the course I designed when I was teaching at LUMS, and later the book which is published by Oxford University Press, that what is the interaction between language, gender, and power. So I would request you to look for these very interesting connections. You'll see that some exciting pictures emerge. Another request I would leave with you is that there are some areas which are so overused in gender. Look for some new areas as well. Try to explore some new provinces in gender studies, because every discipline gets this fresh air when some new questions are asked and some new themes are explored. Finally, we need to have a very fine blend of theory and practice. As I said in the beginning, that there is a need of activists in this society, but there is also a need of some very good researchers. And these things should go together. It's not either or question. So whatever research you do, look for some practical implications of that research as well. And similarly, in our real life, people who are sitting here listening to these wonderful papers, it's not just sufficient to have a very clear idea of gender and the difference between sex and gender and these inequalities. But when we go back to our work, to our family, to this society, and when we interact, that is the real test of what you have learned. Because gender is not something which is in one book or in one paper. It is not kind of idea. Gender is performed every day, every moment. So I hope that all of you who have attended this conference, when you go back, each of your action and whatever you say and do, mind it, you are performing, because this is something which is missing. We come across a number of people, apparently they look very enlightened, but when it comes to their own interaction with their own family or their co-workers, we see this difference between professed ideas and actual practices. These were a few thoughts I thought that in the concluding session I should leave for further until you come next year. As I said, as I announced yesterday, this conference is going to be a regular annual feature at Allama Iqbal Open University every year. Another very important announcement which I made, and I would like to reiterate, that next year, inshallah, we'll be having a quality research journal here in the Gender Studies Department of Allama Iqbal Open University. And I would suggest to please, I'm giving you call for papers for that those who have presented in this conference, please make sure that you can fine-tune, improve your research papers and send those papers to the Gender Studies Department. And the selected papers, we can make use of those papers in our first issue of Gender Studies journal. In the end, I would like to thank all of you who remained here until the last moment for your very keen interest, your interaction, some wonderful questions you asked. And I also thank our speakers who came here and who added value to this conference. And in the end, I would like to thank Dr. Samina Awan, who is Dean of this faculty, Social Sciences faculty, and the team of Gender Studies Department. And it's a very small team. Ms. Atifa, who is sitting on the stage, Aqleem, Ms. Aqleem, Ms. Mehreen, and I think that this little team needs a wonderful round of applause. This was the first tiny step the department took, and I'm sure that this will give them the requisite confidence which is required. Next conference is going to be a real big international conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for giving us valuable insight. Now I would request Dr. Samina Awan, Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, for vote of thanks.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम. जब हमने कल इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का इफ्तिताह किया था तो बिल्कुल भी अंदाज़ा नहीं था कि इसमें इतना इंटरेस्ट होगा, इसमें इतने सवाल किए जाएंगे. बहुत अच्छी बड़ी कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में अमूमन सवाल और जवाब करने का इतना मौका नहीं मिलता, लेकिन चूँकि इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का मकसद ही डिबेट इनिशिएट करना था, वो हो गई. और यूनिवर्सिटीज़ और दरसगाहों का जो इस वक्त बड़ा मकसद है वो यही है कि सवाल उठाए जाएं और फिर उन पर अपने स्टूडेंट से और दूसरे स्टूडेंट से काम करवाया जाए. मैं बहुत शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ तमाम लोगों की जो कल से इस कॉन्फ्रेंस को कामयाब करने में मसरूफ़ रहे. उन्होंने बहुत काम किया. मैं विद इन फैकल्टी ऑफ सोशल साइंसेस जो हमारी टीम्स हैं और मैं सबको देख रही हूँ और सबके चेहरे बहुत फ्रेश हैं. इट मीन्स कि इंशाल्लाह आइंदा मज़ीद कॉन्फ्रेंसेस होंगी, उसमें इसी तरह हम काम करेंगे. जो लोग तशरीफ़ लाए पेपर पढ़ने के लिए और इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में पार्टिसिपेट करने के लिए, मैं उनकी बहुत शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ. वो स्टूडेंट्स जो अपने चॉइस से और बाय देयर इंटरेस्ट जेंडर की पहली कॉन्फ्रेंस में सुनने के लिए आए, मुझे यकीन है कि वो इस बात को अपने हलकों में डिस्कस करेंगे और अगली दफ़ा पेपर्स लेकर आएंगे. आतिफा साहिबा, अकलीम, महरीन, इन सब का बहुत शुक्रिया. मेरे जो प्रोफेसर कोलीग्स बैठे हैं, डॉक्टर हसन रज़ा, फैसल साहब, वो तमाम स्टूडेंट्स जो जेंडर एंड वेमेन स्टडीज़ के सीनियर स्टूडेंट्स भी डॉक्टर साहब आए हुए हैं और उन्होंने इसमें बहुत हमें हेल्प की है. जवाद की टीम, अख्तर साहब, हमारे जो इवेंट मैनेजमेंट के साथी हैं, समी, ये हमेशा इन कॉन्फ्रेंसेस को कामयाब करने में इनका बड़ा रोल होता है. बहुत शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ. इंशाल्लाह हम वी आर लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू सी. जी, सबके लिए तालियां बजाएं. बहुत अच्छा मेन्यू इन्होंने बनाया था जी, खाना बहुत अच्छा था. अमूमन हम उस खाने के बाद सो नहीं सके, हमने सारे पेपर्स जो है सुने. आज लिटरेचर का बड़ा अच्छा हमारा हुआ. इससे पहले साइंस और विमेन के हवाले से जो सेशन था, इट वाज वेरी वेरी आई वुड से कि ऐसा था जिस पे मज़ीद डिबेट्स हो सकती हैं. मेरे अपने कई सवालात थे जो मैं बाद में इनसे करूँगी. बहुत शुक्रिया. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Now I would request Honorable Vice Chancellor to present shield to our keynote speaker, Dr. Anila Kamal.